Thank you all for coming. We're going to get started. On behalf of the Board of Selectmen for Falmouth and our town, I welcome Troy Clarkson, representing Senator DiMacedo, Representative Dave Vieira, and our gathered partners and friends to the Coonamessett River. Many of you are returning back to the river just 6 months from our last gathering for the groundbreaking of the Coonamessett River Restoration Project. We're here today to celebrate the end of Phase 1 and to report that Phase 2 is well underway. By the way, I'm Susan Moran. I'm chair of the Board of Selectmen, for anybody who doesn't know. We're also here to celebrate World Fish Migration Day and to officially open Dexter's Mill Crossing. This boardwalk spanning the river and its floodplain is named for the first grist mill established at this very site in 1700. Now, more than 300 years later, the river runs free. The town could not have achieved so much success without the dedicated efforts of many. It takes a village and a commonwealth and a nation to rewild our wetlands and restore their natural services. The town has taken the lead role in this project, and I thank all of the dedicated personnel in many departments, commissions, and committees who have contributed to moving this forward. However, we could have not done this alone, and we've had many generous support of partners. I want to take this opportunity to list the partner organizations by name, knowing that you realize behind each of the agencies, organizations, and businesses, there are many committed people. They and many others not affiliated with the partner organization have contributed a variety of resources, including thousands of hours per year of volunteer time. We thank you all. Partners from the national to the local level include National Atmospheric and Oceanographic Administration's Restoration Center, the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, the Fish America Foundation, Mass Division of Ecological Restoration, Mass Environmental Trust, Mass Division of Fisheries and Wildlife, Mass Division of Marine Fisheries, New England Wildflower Society, Association to Preserve Cape Cod, Coonamessett River Trust, the 300 Committee, the Community Preservation Fund, the Botany Club of Cape and the Islands, Falmouth Rod and Gun Club, Hamilton Tree and Landscape, Lawrence Lynch Corporation. Finally, we appreciate all of the fine work performed by our river engineering firm, Interfluve Inc., and our contractor, Sumco Eco Contracting. Despite some unforeseen delays in bridge design, they worked overtime to get the crossing and the site ready for today. We're also pleased to announce that we have a new partner for Phase 2 construction. The Cape Cod Conservation District Natural Resource Conservation Service, which is part of the U.S. Department of Agriculture, whose grant will help us replace the culvert at John Parker Road during Phase 2 construction. And now, to our invited guests representing a few of the partners and our supporters. I'd first like to have Representative Dave Vieira, Falmouth, Bourne, and Mashpee speak.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and thank you, Director Lambert, for the state's commitment not only to this phase of the project that we're here today, but those of you that have followed the announcement last week for your continued commitment and this administration's continued commitment to bringing back this watershed, along with other watersheds, not only in my district, but throughout the Commonwealth. And as we gathered here just a few months back, I told that story of the sounds that I used to hear in Hatchville when I was at my grandfather's house. It was the sounds of the gull, and they were so loud that it was almost like being at the beach, except we were in the woods in Hatchville. And all that meant was it was another rite of spring. It was the opportunity to come down here to the river and to watch the heron by the hundreds and sometimes by the thousands and the tens of thousands to run this river. To run this river in an annual right for as a young man that grew up in East Falmouth to learn about the nature of things, the cycle of things. And this project is so important to bringing back the natural heritage of this region. We dammed these rivers, one of them being right here for Dexter's Mill. We dammed the Quashnet, we dammed the Childs River, and now we're working diligently with nonprofit organizations, so many volunteers that are in front of me here, and all of these rivers to take those dams down, to learn from our history, to allow the fish to flow, to allow the natural beauty of these regions to come together. I have a 5-year-old daughter, Emma, who loves to go out and hike and learn about these things as well. And a few years ago, she and I would be up at the Crane Wildlife, and we'd be walking through the woods, and she had a little spot that she loved to sit down and have lunch right before one of the fields. And every once in a while, we'd see a pheasant or something in the field. And one day we went up there, and it looked much like this. And a 3-year-old child said, "Daddy, what did they do? It was so beautiful. They cut the trees." And so it was a learning moment to talk about why did they cut the trees? To bring back an important habitat for important wildlife in that area. And so I said, we're going to come back, and in a few months it's going to look different. We went back, and things started to grow, and things greened, and, oh, Daddy, it's beautiful. It's not woods, but it's beautiful now. Well, yesterday we came down here. I wanted to do a little site visit before today. She's 5 now, and she stood right in front of the podium here looking out, and she goes, "Daddy, this looks like Crane Wildlife again." I said, well, Emma, let's go back and look at the kiosk, and let's look at what this is going to look like in the months and years to come, and why this is important. And we had that conversation, and she knows about the fish because we've been doing this since she was in the backpack to come down here. But from a local legislator, from somebody kid that grew up here in T-Ticket, that grew up fishing this river when you could fish it, with my dad and my grandfather, I want to say thank you to Director Lambert, to commissioners, to Secretary Beaton, and to Governor Baker for the state's commitment to making this happen. But without the tireless day-to-day efforts of all of the volunteers, of all of the organizations standing in front of me and some behind me, the work on the ground here couldn't be done. So hats off, let's keep up the good work, and I'll be back in a few months with Emma to make sure she knows that this was a good project.
Thank you, David. And I can't tell you what an incredible thrill it is from here to just see a wave of everyone from Falmouth, Cape Cod, the state that really is committed to so much volunteer work and so many great historical, ecological projects. I mean, this is just, it's a privilege to be with you all. And, you know, I've got to thank you for that and everything you do every day and all year, the tremendous amount of hours and energy that you all put in. We next have as speaker Troy Clarkson, aide to Senator Vinnie DiMacedo, Plymouth and Barnstable.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And when Sue said that David was Falmouth born and Mashpee, I think that was also a double entendre because he is Falmouth born, B-O-R-N. And boy, what a special privilege it is to have someone like Representative Vieira, who has lived here his entire life and was part of this project and so many others. And so today, Representative, we give you our thanks for your leadership and environmental stewardship. I'm going to check my notes here. That David Brower, who many of you know was part of the soul of the Sierra Club, once said, "We must begin thinking like a river if we are to leave a legacy of beauty and life for future generations." And we're here today because people in this community thought like a river. A few days ago, Representatives Fernandez and Vieira and Senator DiMacedo were at an event for the League of Women Voters. And they covered a wide range of issues. Some of you may have been there to listen. But one of the things the senators said was many of the issues that they work on together, they're not Republican issues, they're not Democratic issues, they're Cape Cod issues. Well, here, This was not a Republican or a Democrat or a conservative or a liberal issue. It was a Falmouth issue. And I look out over this crowd and I see so many people who were able to participate and bring the community together. It wasn't always easy, right? They say public policy making is sort of like sausage sometimes. And sometimes, you don't really want to know everything that goes into it, but when it comes out, the final product is pretty good. And that was the case here. I look out and I see Joe Netto, who lives steps from here, who was part of the discussions, part of the many, many debates at town meeting and in the community to make this happen. Somewhere here in the crowd, I saw former town manager Bob Rittenauer, who was in the trenches and very much a part of this. There are so many people that are standing and sitting here today. So many organizations, Mark Kasperzik, who's on the staff of the Conservation Commission, who on a daily basis acts as a steward of these and other properties. And so today is not just an achievement for the people who were able to think like a river. Today is an achievement for people who were able to think and work together, people of different backgrounds, very different philosophies that came together in the interest of returning the flow for the first time in 300 years. Think of that. 300 years ago, people stood on this very spot and enjoyed this natural beauty. And today, as a community, we get to do that again. So on behalf of the Senator, I bring to you my thanks for including us in part of this. But far more important than that, our gratitude for this community coming together on such an important project like this. So keep up the great work and have a great day.
I also want to recognize in the crowd my colleague Sam Patterson, Falmouth Selectman, and the town manager, in fact, Julian Suso. Thanks, guys, for coming. And next we have the restoration ecologist Jim Turek from NOAA Restoration Center.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's great to be here today, and although it's cloudy and luckily it's not raining, it's a very bright day for the town of Falmouth and the fish that are now given free access with the restoration project. So I wanted to focus on a few issues relating to the restoration itself, so you get an understanding of why we do these projects. Very important to our agency. The Restoration Center has been doing various ecological restoration projects in the Northeast from Maine to Virginia since 1992. And of those projects, basically thousands of them, we've had 314 projects in our region now. And of those, 40% have been dam removals. And so of the 126 dam removals we've worked on, this has been a very exciting one, like many of the others. And so the values that we get out of these projects are, they're almost instantaneous return for our investments. We get fish that are bumping their noses often at the base of these dams that cannot pass because they need to get to spawning and rearing habitat upstream. And so that provides that instantaneous opening, if you will, opening the door to allow them to move through when they return on their spawning run. It also provides great resiliency to local communities. Now, this dam, of course, isn't a high hazard dam per se, but many of the projects we do work on are high hazard dams. And so when we look at taking these projects out, we look at what's the benefit to the community well beyond just the fish, but they all come together, of course. And so when you take a dam out that's high hazard, and it could cause flooding above the dam, as well as if it fails, and it could cause massive destruction as a lot of water moves downriver in a failure of the structure. So that's what we really look at, as well as the fish, even though the National Marine Fisheries Service has a high priority if we're trying to bring back our natural resources. So I should say that I've worked for the Restoration Center for about 18 and a half years now. I cover southern New England down to New York City, and so I have Long Island Sound, Buzzards Bay, Narragansett Bay water bodies, as well as their watersheds. And of all the projects I've worked on over the years, this project in particular, I mean, by my count, there's 17 partners that have worked on this project. And you've heard a lot of the names of the organizations earlier, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but I believe it's probably the most significant project that I've worked on in the 18.5 years with a strong group of partners to make this happen. So it's a great privilege to be part of this. We put a lot of money and effort into it. Betsy Gladfelter, of course, has really made this project happen with a strong management over the long period of time that we've worked on the project. I think we've worked on it for at least 12 years now, maybe longer. I've lost track. But Betsy certainly deserves a round of applause, if you will. So going back to the projects that I spoke about earlier, I just wanted to explain a little bit more about the significance of, so this project, although it only opens up a little over 2 miles of river, but it does provide a large body of water where alewives spawn, and so it's a significant value to this region. And then on top of it, this is a groundwater-driven system, and so if you understand the value of that, even in drought years, this is a climate-resilient project that's occurring here. So we're trying to put back a wetland system that contributes to the groundwater sustainability. The groundwater then supports the base flows of this river and allows the fish to pass and have good quality habitat. So these are all components that we cannot underestimate and undervalue. So I just want to let you know about that. And I'll finish off by saying, of all the projects that I mentioned earlier, our agency has put $90 million into these projects. So you can understand we have such a great value that we put into dam removals in particular. And then on top of that, we've got many partners like Beth's organization with the state agencies and private, as well as local communities, putting another 60 some odd million. So in the last 25 years, we've spent about $155 million making these projects happen throughout the Northeast. So it's a large scale effort. It's all very important to put fish back into the ocean. The ocean contributes back to freshwater systems like this. So I appreciate you inviting me here today, and hopefully we all get a better appreciation of this system over the longer term for future generations. Thank you.
Well, Jim mentioned the strong partnerships that are really appreciated and necessary for these great partners. And right here we have next Director Beth Lampert herself from Mass Division of Ecological Restoration.
Thank you and good afternoon. My name is Beth Lambert, and I'm the Director of the Division of Ecological Restoration, part of the Department of Fish and Game. Our mission is to protect and restore rivers, wetlands, and watersheds for the benefit of people and the environment. We work on projects like this all across the state in partnership with local communities, nonprofit organizations, and federal, state, and local agencies. So I'm thrilled to be here today with the town, the Coonamessett River Trust, the 300 Committee, our federal and state agency friends, and all the partners of the Coonamessett River Restoration Project. I'd like to acknowledge the other Department of Fish and Game staff involved in this project. DER staffer Eric Ford is over there. He's our point person for the Coonamessett River Restoration Project. And then Steve Hurley from the Division of Fisheries and Wildlife and Brad Chase from the Division of Marine Fisheries have both been involved in this project for many, many years. So we're extremely proud to be a partner in this project. We've supported the town with technical assistance, with funding, help with project coordination. And just last week, for example, we were able to announce a new $70,000 grant to the town of Falmouth to help finish up Phase 1 and make a strong start into Phase 2 of the project. So there's 4 main reasons why we support the project, and I just want to touch on them briefly because Jim Turek, who spoke before me, covered many of them. The first is because of the benefit to the rivers, to the wetland ecosystem, to healthy watersheds, to water quality and the fisheries, so the environmental benefits. And then we also support it in keeping with our mission because of its benefits to people. The project provides a place for people to come learn about nature, learn about the fish runs here, enjoy being outside, and just have a great place to be. We also support the project because of the way it helps the town deal with aging infrastructure. The dam here was aging and would have required maintenance over time to maintain its integrity. The culverts at John Parker Road are highly deteriorated, and this project will provide a brand new, much stronger, much more resilient crossing, better for fish, but also better for the town and the traveling public. And finally, we support the project because of the benefits to students and to the teachers and to the volunteers who lead students through this site, helping them learn about healthy fisheries, water quality, and the environment. So I want to close by acknowledging and celebrating the work of the river heroes here in Falmouth that made this project happen. I think there's hundreds of you. Some of you are here today and some undoubtedly are not here today. But you're the ones who've been walking these trails for years, keeping an eye on every plant, every turtle, every fish, every invasive plant that pokes its head up out of the soil. You've been out at midnight, catching river herring and tagging them and releasing them so that we can learn about where they go afterwards. You've been telling stories of the human history of the river and the natural history of the river to your children and to your grandchildren. You've been bringing your students here on rainy days and on sunny days so that they can grow up to become stewards of the river as you are. You're attending public meetings where you're asking tough questions and making your voices heard. You're up to 1 a.m, finishing one last grant application, one final email, sending out one more meeting agenda to make the project happen. And finally, you're in the town government, taking time out of your already packed schedule to attend a project meeting and make sure that everything here goes smoothly. Thank you for everything that you do to protect and restore the Coonamessett River for future generations. Thank you.
Well, I guess that's what they mean when they say Beth Lambert gets it. River Warriors, incredible. Has project manager Kim Teelis from Mass Environmental Trust arrived yet? Okay, we're going to go on to President Wendy Buessler from the Coonamessett River Trust. Okay, we're going to switch around. We're having first the Executive Director, Jessica Rittenauer from the 300 Committee. Thanks. Sorry.
Thanks, Susan. It's so great to see so many people here today to celebrate this accomplishment with the Conservation Commission and the town and all the wonderful partners. I just want to share a few words congratulating the town. This is truly a collaboration, and it's an example of resourcefulness. When I listened to the previous speakers talk about all the different partners and thinking about the federal and state funding support and, of course, the town government support and the nonprofit community, it's an example of how collaboration and resourcefulness can get amazing things done. And this project is a wonderful example of that. I also want to recognize Betsy Gladfelder. Her leadership is just incredible in that she's inclusive, she keeps people informed, but we know how much work Betsy has done to get this project to this point, so I just want to congratulate her for that. The 300 Committee Land Trust is pleased and feels privileged to have been able to play a role in this project. We really played a supporting role to the Conservation Commission, who took the lead in moving this forward. Most recently, we helped with community preservation. We co-applied for the community preservation funding to build the boardwalk. So we're another example of our partnership, but one of the most special things we think about the boardwalk is that it's handicap accessible. And more when the town and 300 Committee are working together, we want to ensure access for all ages and all abilities. So the accessible portion of this is really important, and also it encourages all age groups to come out and visit the property. We're doing a lot of talking now about the healing power of land and just the fact that we have these natural areas in our town that we can go to and use. So making them accessible and safe and having environmental education opportunities is really the key. So we're, again, glad to be part of it and nice to see you all here.
Next, we have Wendy Buessler from Coonamessett River Trust.
Hi, I'm Wendy Bissler. I'm president of the Coonamessett River Trust, and I'm so excited to be here today and to see everybody. This is a really, really wonderful thing that's happening today. Today, we are celebrating a new chapter in the history of the Coonamessett River. Just as the Coonamessett winds through the center of Falmouth, it also wove its way through the history of our town. As Falmouth grew and changed, the river was altered to fit different needs and uses. This restoration project brings the Coonamessett River back full circle to a time when herring were plentiful and the river ran free its entire length, by providing a natural corridor from the ocean to one of the Cape's largest freshwater ponds. This vista we see before us may not look like much right now. I mean, frankly, it looks like a moonscape. But this is going to be the ultimate ugly duckling. As soon as the weather warms up, whenever that happens, it's been a little late this year, but the seeds and plants will burst open and green up. These 17 restored acres will look very different in just a few short months, and within a few years it will be spectacular. Where once there was a wide, straight, shallow, hot, uniform river, we now have a much more naturally shaped river that is 30% longer, with curves and riffles and 8 deep pools. The dam removal here and farther upriver will allow more herring to reach their spawning grounds faster, easier, and with less stress. This will hopefully lead to lots of baby herring, and the river will once again be black with fish, like it was 60 years ago with the spring migration. It will also help the American eels, whose miraculous life cycles brings them to the Coonamessett from the faraway Sargasso Sea. And we've been seeing a lot of baby eels in the river, elvers, and so I hope if you take the tour today, you'll see some along the shores of the river. The river is now connected to its floodplain with the creation of 1,600 feet of river buffer habitat. Plantings along the river will cool the water and help fish escape from being picked up overhead by an overhead seagull. The cooler water will hopefully bring back the sea-run brook trout that once thrived here. There are trout in the river up near River Bend. We're hoping that they're going to move south once we get this area restored and cool. The woody bits you see across the landscape are known as large woody debris. That's the technical term. And they play an important part in creating habitat for fish and the insects they like to eat. The salamanders, frogs, and turtles and other animals will love the wood that's sitting up on the platform area. So that's kind of a habitat for them. Birds, butterflies, bees, otters, and many, many other animals will also benefit from this restored ecosystem. And as we've already seen, this reinvigorated open space is a perfect outdoor classroom for teaching students about animal life cycles, ecology, hydrology, and local cultural history. And they're learning about the environment right here in their own backyard. This restoration also helps two of our most pressing problems, nutrient pollution and climate change. The restored river will help remove some of the nitrogen from the groundwater before it reaches Great Pond. Also, the removal of the dams will increase the flood storage capacity for this area during major hurricanes and less impact to neighboring houses along here. This celebration is one of more than 567 World Fish Migration Day events. The World Fish Migration Day is a one-day global celebration to create awareness on the importance of open rivers and migratory fish with the common theme of connecting fish, rivers, and people, and that's exactly what we're doing here today. The Coonamessett River Trust is grateful, thankful, and so excited to see our dream turn into reality. We want to say thank you to the funding agencies, our elected officials, Interfluve, who designed the plant, and the contractor Sumco, who built it. The town of Falmouth employees and volunteers and the people of Falmouth who all played a part in making this project possible. We especially want to thank the herring wardens, the present and past herring wardens, Chuck Martinson, Paul Montague, and George Souza. If it wasn't for their several decades of dedication to ensure that the herring could make their way past 18 water control structures between here and the spawning grounds up at the Coonamessett Pond 3 miles away, we might not have a viable population of herring here today. I also want to thank all of our wonderful CRT volunteers who have contributed so much time and gathering important data that was and is still being used for our restoration plans. Volunteers have been out here in all weather conditions: sun, rain, day, night, heat, and snow, counting herring, tagging herring, inventorying plant species, measuring the river channels, picking up trash, mapping the cold water inlets, etc., etc., etc. We logged nearly 2,000 volunteer hours in just this past year alone. However, most of all, the Coonamessett River Trust wants to thank the Town Conservation Commission employees and the commissioners, but especially, and I don't think we can do this too much today, to thank Betsy Gladfelter for her amazing energy and efforts to moving this restoration forward. The CRT looks forward to continuing our partnership with all of these groups so we continue to monitor and assist in the restoration. Restoring the Coonamessett will continue to bring benefits to Falmouth for generations to come. Thank you, everyone.
And thanks, Wendy. On behalf of the Town of Falmouth and Board of Selectmen, including Megan English Braga, Doug Jones, Sam Patterson, and Doug Brown, my heartfelt gratitude as well to Dr. Betsy Gladfelder, the driving force of the Coonamessett River Restoration Project. I want to thank you all for joining us on this very important occasion. We look forward to having you visit here many times in the future as the restoration progresses and we continue to develop the Heritage Trail along the Coonamessett Greenway. We're about to have the ceremonial ribbon cutting, which will occur right behind me, but I want to take this moment to invite you to stay afterwards. There'll be a demonstration of herring tagging by the Coonamessett River Trust and tours around the Lower Loop Trail to learn about the features of the restoration. The herring tagging will take place by the Middle Dam, and tours will begin here in about 20 minutes. And now we'll cut the ribbon.
So for those of you who would like to see herring tagging, there'll be 3 of us. How's it work? There'll be 3 herrings who will give you tours. And so we'll stand up there. One group can go that way and 2 groups can pulse their way this way. So I know some of you had questions, and so if you want to join one of these tours and ask your question and then go home and not take the tour, that's okay too. Thanks very much for coming, and rest assured I have jobs for everyone who'd like a job.
All right.
Smile. Thank you. So today was an opportunity for us to gather together here to celebrate World Fish Migration Day, and a major goal of this project is to improve fish passage in the river. In fact, that's sort of how we started the project, with a grant about improving fish passage. And so the way we do it, and for restoration to succeed, what you have to do is restore an area, but make sure that you've removed any stressors to the area. So in this case, the river has been made 30% longer by using this large woody debris at the outer side of bends. So there are 8 bends that have been constructed, and underneath these root wads are deeper pools. So even before, like right now, before the floodplain greens up, the fish have places to hide going up the river. So there are 8 new pool systems, and between those bends are areas that we call riffles, where the river dips a little bit and it kind of burbles along. All along the river, these systems are low gradient systems, meaning that over a long distance it doesn't drop much in elevation, and the groundwater seeps in at places along the river. And so in addition to removing the sand that was put on over the last 120 years and uncovering the peat and making a new river channel, We've also connected that river to areas of very strong springs coming in, so that even this next year, some of the trout that are north of Sandwich Road, if they come down to this part of the river, they'll have cold water refuges to go into. And one of the areas is the turtle pond that's down here at the south part of the restoration. So these are all dogwood trees that will be coming out. They're just live sticks. Dogwood. And so here's the large woody debris. Here are the root wads, and they're attached to root trunks that are at least 24 feet long. And in an area like this, which is a critical bend, they're actually connected together with steel rods. And you can see the river, well, you can see a riffle there, yep. And you see the river come down, and the outside of the bend, the water goes faster than the inside. And so underneath these root wads, you have places for the fish to hide. Pools, yep.
Pretty neat.
So that's the turtle pond, and the turtle pond always stays around 50 degrees. It's groundwater temperature, because there's water upwelling, and as we walk around past it, you'll see some of the springs that are feeding it. There's springs from underneath too, but you'll see some of the springs feeding it, and then it connects out here to the river. So this is a place that a trout could come down the river, and if it's summertime and it's still hot, they can go into this area and be back in cool water again.
Amazing.
So while one of the goals is to restore the natural habitat, to rewild the wetland, another very important, equally important goal is to provide opportunities for the people of Falmouth and for visitors to get out into nature. And so we're developing a trail using existing trails between here and Coonamessett Pond. We're developing this area where we'll have interpretive signs, natural history on one side, cultural history on the other. And for instance, we're working on a sign right now that will talk about the history of mills in this area. This area had its first mill in 1700, and then in the 1800s it was a grist mill initially, then it was a woolen mill. And so there's a lot of history along the river. So in order to cross a floodplain, you need to have a boardwalk, otherwise you're going to be walking in mud. So we built this boardwalk. It spans the river, crosses the river, and in this lower part of the river, we will have basically it'll be at about a mile long lower loop, and so we'll have another boardwalk at the north part of the floodplain once to replace Middle Dam that's there. Middle Dam will be removed, and that whole floodplain will be continuous. So it'll allow continuity from east to west and north to south of water coming into the system. This part of the project, phase one of the Coonamessett River Restoration Project, which is completed recently, has involved 17 different organizations, plus lots of volunteers. For instance, some of my friends came early today to help with the parking, even though they haven't been directly involved. But volunteers for the 300 Committee, and especially for the Coonamessett River Trust, have literally put thousands of hours of volunteer time into fish counting, fish tagging, determining what vegetation was here beforehand, and they'll be following the vegetation as it revegetates. And so in addition to the not-for-profits, including the Botany Club of Cape Cod and the Islands, the Association to Preserve Cape Cod, there have also been businesses here who have contributed to this large woody debris that was mentioned, and you can see the wood there. Much of that was contributed by Hamilton Tree. And so it has been a community effort. Most people, when I ask them to do a job, they're more than willing to help.